This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. It's July 22nd, and on this day in 1992, it was a little intra-squad scrimmage that has now become legendary. It was the greatest game that nobody saw. The greatest amalgamation of NBA talent on one court going at each other. The Dream Team. They may have been teammates in the 6 ass-whoopings they handed out in the Olympic qualifier a few weeks prior. And they would be teammates again in a few days when the ass-whoopings continued in the Olympics. But on this day in a gym in Monte Carlo, it was a 5-on-5 battle that rivaled the intensity of a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. And it was a battle for supremacy between Magic and Michael.
Magic was hesitant to surrender his place on the mountaintop. And Michael, being Michael, he needed to say, no, I'm on the top of the mountain now.
Dream Team coach Chuck Daly wanted to play a 4-quarter game and let his guys go at it. Clyde Drexler was nursing a sore knee, John Stockton was out with a broken leg, and so this was 5-on-5, no subs. Jordan, Pippen, Malone, Bird, and Ewing on one side, Magic, Barkley, Mullen, Robinson, and Leitner on the other. Nobody outside of the team was allowed in, no fans, no media outside of Jack McCallum, who was given access to write a book about this team, and only the cameras there to capture practice video for breakdown later by the coaches were allowed in. There was an Italian ref and a French ref, and even though PJ Carlissimo had a whistle, he swallowed it during this game. Magic's team took an early lead in the first quarter, and in fact were up by 9. And he started chirping at Jordan, lighting the competitive fire that would turn this game into legend.
Doesn't take much to get Michael going. Just a little something to tweak him, and it's on.
He never liked to lose. Michael always got that look. When you see that look, then you know just give him the damn ball and get out the way.
Jordan took over and proceeded to lead his team back. A bucket in traffic, a dish to Pippen for an easy 2, and then in the final minute, Jordan drove to the basket and got his shot blocked, but the French ref blew the whistle for a foul. Magic was pissed. He grabbed the ball and kicked it into the rafters, screaming, "Just like in the NBA, he gets every call." The ball was retrieved, and Jordan proceeded to hit the game-clinching free throws, singing the line from his Gatorade commercial, "If I Could Be Like Mike."
If I could be like Mike, I'm gonna be like Mike. If I could be like.
According to McCallum's book, Dream Team, Jordan led the way with 17 of his team's 40 points. Despite being down by 9 early, Jordan's spark led to a 17-4 run, and his team won by 4.
How you like that ass kicking we gave you? No. Come on now. Well, y'all got the first quarter practice.
On the bus ride back to the hotel, Magic shouted to Barkley, "I guess we shouldn't have pissed the man off." David Robinson said that the games they played against each other, and especially this incredibly intense one, brought that team together.
Monte Carlo was kind of a turning point. Walls started to come down from, when you're playing against each other, you have these rivalries. These are my teammates now. They're guys that, that I'm looking towards for support. It seemed like we became more friends than anything else.
MJ told ESPN's Michael Wilbon it was the greatest game he ever played in. So this is a guy who won 6 NBA titles. hit the game-winning shot to win an NCAA title, brought home 2 Olympic gold medals, and this intra-squad scrimmage was the game he ranks at the top of his list. This episode is brought to you by Sterling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Sterling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Sterling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Sterling Roastery a try at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 2001, David Duval finally won the major he coveted, and he was aided by an extra golf club. Not in his golf bag, but someone else's. Between 1997 and 2001, only Tiger Woods played better golf than David Duval. Duval was the world's #1 for 3 months in '99, he led the money list in '98, and he was second in '97 and '99. He won 13 tournaments in that span, including the Tour Championship in '97 and the Players' Championship in '99. He was part of the '99 Ryder Cup win for the U.S., and he did well in the majors, but he always seemed to come up just a little bit short. A tie for second at the Masters in '98, and again in 2001. A top 10 in the '99 PGA Championship. He had been in contention heading into the final round of the 2000 British Open, but a 43 on the final 9 led to a final round 75 and out of the top 10. After a second round 73, it looked like Duval would have to wait a little bit longer. But on Saturday, Duval worked his way around Royal Lytham and St. Anne's like a local, and he carded the best round of the day with a 65. He was at the top of the leaderboard with 3 others, including Welshman Ian Woosnam. On Sunday, Woosnam's round got off to a great start, and then the bottom fell out. Royal Lytham and St. Anne's is a bit unusual in that it starts with a par 3. Woosnam hit his tee shot with an iron tight. He rolled it in for birdie to take the lead. But when he was standing on the second tee, he realized he had 15 clubs in his bag, one more than the legal limit. The extra club was a fairway wood, and he was livid at his caddy, Miles Byrne. If Royal Lytham started off with a par 4, he probably would have noticed the extra club before he started his round and avoided the penalty. Instead, since he played a hole with the extra club in his bag, he was assessed a 2-shot penalty, and he would finish 4 shots off the pace. Woosnam did not fire his caddy once the day ended, saying, "It's the biggest mistake he will make in his life, and he won't do it again." Instead, he fired him 2 weeks later after he showed up late after a night of drinking. Duval had a 5 birdie, 1 bogey day to shoot 67 and beat Nicholas Fast by 3 shots to win the Claret Jug. Duval finally had his coveted major championship. And then the bottom fell out from under him. The Open Championship would be his final professional win. He dropped to 80th on the money list in 2002 and outside the top 200 in '03. He battled injuries, personal issues, and vertigo. He missed the cut by a mile in the '04 U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills, playing the first 2 rounds in 25 over par. He made only 1 cut in the '05 season. He's playing on the Champions Tour now and still looking for his first win there. But nobody can take away the major championship he won on this day in 2001. On this day in 1963, it was the rematch between Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson. Liston had waited years to get his first shot at Patterson. After a meteoric rise to assume the spot of top challenger, Liston watched as Patterson defended his title with fighters who did not measure up to Sonny. When Patterson lost to Ingemar Johansson, the Swede spent more time soaking up the limelight of being a champ, and he had no interest in fighting Liston. Johansson and Patterson danced a little pas de deux for a couple of years, not wanting to step into the ring with a man with 15-inch fists. And finally, in September 1962, Liston got his chance, and he knocked out Patterson in the first round to win the heavyweight title. 9 months later, the two would climb back into the ring with pretty much the same result. When the bell rang to start the fight, Liston started to ring Patterson's bell, connecting with jabs, uppercuts, and combinations. People had barely had a chance to sit down in their seats when Liston connected with a hard right, putting Patterson on the canvas. He got up after a 2 count, but he wasn't vertical much longer as Liston pounded him again. He popped back up again, but the end was near. When Liston sent him to the mat for the 3rd time, the fight was over after 2 minutes and 10 seconds, 4 seconds longer than their first fight. Speaking of repeat winners, on this day in 1990, Greg LeMond won the Tour de France for the 3rd time. This was probably the easiest of his 3 Tour wins, and let me just say that there is nothing easy about cycling's 3 Grand Tours, with the Tour de France being the most grueling sporting event on the planet. But I say this was his easiest because his first in 1986 came despite a huge intra-squad fight between him and Frenchman Bernard Hinault that I'll talk about a little bit more in depth in a few days. His second in 89 came 2 years after surviving being shot in a hunting accident, and a final stage come-from-behind win that I'll also have to dive more into depth later. But in the 90 Tour, LeMond was riding for a new team, and he had a pocket full of money after signing a 5-year multi-million-dollar contract. But after being surprised by an early Tour breakaway that put him in a 10-minute deficit, LeMond spent most of the rest of the Tour eating away at that time. It wasn't until the second to last stage that LeMond finally was able to put on the yellow jersey and ride into Paris for the final of his Tour de France wins. And on this day in 1984, Marianne Martin jumped onto the top spot of the podium as the inaugural winner of the Women's Tour de France. 81 years after the men were given the opportunity to race around the French countryside, up and over the Alps and Pyrenees, and ride down the Champs-Élysées, the women finally got their chance. The race was held alongside the men's race. They rode 18 instead of 21 stages, getting out earlier and racing shorter distances each day than the men, and they also rode a shorter overall distance. The women were underestimated by the French press, with most of the male journalists scoffing that none of these women stood a chance of finishing the 1,059-mile journey. Instead of racing for sponsored teams, the women raced for their country, and this turned out to be a battle between the U.S. and the Dutch. The Dutch ended up winning 15 of the 18 stages. But when Martin climbed the steep slopes on stage 12 into Grenoble and won the stage, she realized that she was an actual contender, and she stood second in the GC. 2 days later, when she took the win in another hilly stage, she captured the leader's yellow jersey and held on to it coming to Paris. She came into the final day here on the 22nd with more than a 3-minute lead over Helena Haga, and the customary agreement to not attack the leader's jersey on the final stage that exists in the men's race did not apply in this first women's race. Haga repeatedly attacked in an effort to make up the lost time, but Martin covered every move to win the overall GC title in Le Tour Les Femmes. The Women's Tour de France carried on until 2009 before financial difficulties ended it. A shortened 1 or 2 day event was raced between 2014 through 2021. In 2023, a multi-stage Le Tour was raced once again, with this year's women's event starting on the 26th and racing until August 3rd. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Next time you're at your in-laws' house and they serve a fancy dinner with a tablecloth, go ahead and wipe your barbecue-sauced hands and mouth on the linen and then proclaim, "What? That's the way tablecloths were used originally, as one big communal napkin." You may not get invited back, but at least you would have passed along a fun fact on your way out the door. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.